Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm bringing my water to the stage. I'm afraid I'm dealing with a bit of aftermath from getting out of cold. But it's really nice to be here with you today, and thanks so much to Riga Tech Girls for the invitation. And it's definitely been an inspiration already seeing the couple of hands that were raised during the previous speeches, showing how interested you are to transfer to tech if you're not working in tech already. So I had a bit of a challenge thinking about what to bring to the stage and what is my main takeaway that I can present to you today. It's definitely not anything specific in business or tech or any technical details that I can share you as my trade secret. But also continuing the previous presentation, I definitely have a story to tell, and maybe one of you even will find that inspirational or encouraging, or quite the opposite. You will realize that this industry is not for you. But that is what I'm going to share, and hopefully it's going to be useful to some of you. So, is it on? No, too far. All right, so this is the typical about me slide that everyone's probably expecting at a conference like this. You can see my education, you can see my workplaces or you can't. I can. You can see my education, you can see my workplaces since the past 5 years when I joined tech. But I don't think it tells you much about who I actually am and what has led me to the point where I am today. So as you can see here, I started working in tech thanks to TechChill. It was a very random coincidence for me to end up back in Latvia after studying abroad. But I met Liv and Mari, who were leading TechChill back in the day, and I just decided to join the project, and that was the initial starting point for me in startup and tech industry. Never before did I even consider doing anything of that sort. And then I've also helped Tech Hub Riga on different projects, and now I have ended up working at Vigo Health that I'm going to go into a bit more detail later on. But as I said, yes, I don't think the previous slide tells much about who I actually am. So let's get into a bit of a background. Where do I come from? That might explain a thing or two. So I come from a family of entrepreneurs. Both my parents had their own companies ever since I remember myself. My dad was running his company until last year when he retired finally, but he actually still does have the company. And my mom is a teacher of economics. So I've been surrounded, and I've lived through, and I've grown up in this cycle of economy. I've lived through the good times when the company was doing great, and all of us lived through the bad times when the economy was not that great. So in a way, I feel a sense of security and a sense of home in a setting where so many things are unknown. I am terrified of being in a setting where I know where I'm going to be in a year, for example. And only now, when working in tech, I've realized that it's a very close family feeling for me. So that's why I feel secure. I feel almost at home. I can relate so much more to my parents and the way we lived back in the day. And I also started helping my dad at his company from the age of 14, 15, I would say. I helped him with accounting, basic, I don't know, taking all the booking apart and putting it all into Excel. So nothing complicated, but I got my first experience in managing Excel and writing invoices and sending out envelopes of invoices, for example. Next, this is a very nerdy me in high school. I was the nerdiest student you could imagine. I was, as many girls usually are, the textbook student, teacher's favorite. I hated not knowing things. I hated being bad at something. I hated getting bad grades, not being the best. I did every possible extracurricular activity you could in school. I was the president of student council. I like to laugh that I sucked the school and the small hometown that I'm from dry. So I did everything I possibly could And that is actually the reason why I moved abroad right after high school, because I just felt that I've reached the ceilings of what Latvia can give me. And I was really surprised that there was a coincidence of TechChill that brought me back here, but I was super skeptical that I would ever return once I left. And then, a bit too far. And then this last bubble explains my work experience before joining tech. I did the most random jobs ever, but never were they without a clear decision making on why did I do those jobs. For example, I was super interested in coffee, so I joined the best coffee roastery there was in London, and I've worked and learned all about coffee. There was a time, and I still am, super interested in food and cooking and the restaurant industry, so I just randomly approached exactly these two guys that you can see in the photo on the street while they were sitting and smoking outside of a restaurant in Copenhagen. I just approached them and asked if they're looking for employees without having any further prior experience in food or wine. And that was a Michelin star restaurant, so it was a crazy long shot, and I don't know if I would ever do that again, but that's what I did. So I ended up working in the restaurant and having to wear a suit every day, which is still the case till this day now. It was an insanely physically and emotionally and mentally draining job. And only now, when putting these slides together, I realized how much that work experience gave and how much is that the foundation of how do I work today and where do I get my strength and inspiration in work from. And then jumping the timeline completely, now it's been a year actually. This week I celebrated my 1-year anniversary working for Vigo Health. I would love to ask who has ever heard of Vigo Health or who knows what Vigo Health is. Okay. Thanks, yeah. So I have some explaining to do. So Vigo Health is a medtech startup. We have created a program for stroke survivors to use at the comfort of their own homes to recover from stroke faster, cheaper, and without that much of involvement from their families or relatives who would otherwise have to probably bring them to the rehabilitation center because that's the way it normally works when the independence is lost. We are one of the leading medtech companies in the Baltics, and this is not just a buzzword that every company usually says, one of the leading whatever in whatever region, but I can actually back this up by saying that we are the first to be governmentally reimbursed in the Baltics, Eastern, and also Northern Europe, which is huge for a digital therapeutic and also for the national health system, meaning that the government is paying for our service because that helps them save money. The patients can start their rehabilitation as soon as needed. They don't have to wait in lines to get into a rehabilitation center, and it's also much cheaper than it would be in a rehabilitation center, and the patients get better sooner, meaning they can soon return to work and get that tax money rolling in. And who is a business developer? That's me at Vigo Health, and you can see how most of my time schedule would look like if I had to put it in a graph. Most of the parts are the usual, the official, writing emails, getting ready to write the email or writing a follow-up email, having calls or meetings all the time, constantly. I'm responsible for research and strategy, specifically leading Vigo Health to the US market. So most of these parts cover the US, and I have the responsibility to figure out how to get the company to the US. How does the US healthcare market work? What are the main challenges? Because it's so different from the European health industry. And where can we come in? Who is going to pay for Vigo Health? Knowing that the user is probably still the same, it's the stroke survivor, but the payers differ tremendously. So I'm the one doing all of that, plus this tiny part that is probably at around 15% of my time, I would say. That's the startup magic. So that is what everyone ends up doing, and that's just the reality of working for a startup, no matter what role you are in, probably, especially at the early stage that we are in, where you end up doing everything. You end up advising your CEO, advising your colleagues. You end up cleaning your office. That is a reality for us also. You end up offering coffee for your coffee machine, and all of those things that are actually, this part exactly is what makes it different from being a business developer in any large corporation, and that is the part that whether keeps you in a startup or makes you realize that, sorry, this is not for me. For me, this is the part that convinces me every day that I'm at the right place where I should be. Big question that I don't have enough time for is why tackle health? So why, if any one of you might be interested in getting into health, why is that so? So probably it's not a big realization for me to say that health is a huge industry that everyone is familiar with. Whether you go to your doctor on a daily basis, that I hope you don't, you have all experienced healthcare one way or another. And even the tiniest change that any innovation or any new implementation in this industry can do, it has a huge potential to bring huge cost savings, huge outcomes in how satisfied the customers, the patients are with the healthcare that they get, how efficient the system is. So you don't really have to look far for why do I wake up every day. I mean, the industry speaks for itself. I never have to convince myself of doing what I do because I know it's for the greater good. It's going to help people recover sooner. It's going to help people save money and put it to areas that need it much more, for example. But then there's also a downside to this industry. And that's the reality of healthcare. Imagine healthcare being compared to a huge company, because it essentially is. It's one of the biggest spendings that any country has on their paychecks, on their budgets, but it works in such an inefficient way. There's so much money being spent on things that are unnecessary. So much work is being done on paper, so you can't get centralized data and you can't act accordingly because you can't have the statistics to make decisions clear. And the patients go out of the hospital or their treatment without really being satisfied. Most of us probably know someone who's been really disappointed by their doctor or by the treatment or any other way. And so it doesn't really paint a beautiful picture if that was a huge company, for example. Everything is bad in a way, but that also gives you a huge opportunity to come in and innovate. Once you get over the stigma and the conservative and traditional setting that this healthcare industry is built around, there's definitely a huge opportunity to be tackled and to just go wild and change so many lives. But now I'm finally going to get into the 5 learnings that I came to present to you initially. All of these I've experienced during my time in tech, and specifically this past year when working for an actual startup. So first of all, it rather supports what the previous speaker already said, and it's fail more and fail louder. As I said, I'm working mainly to get Vigo Health to the US. So I often get questions, what is the main difference between Europe and US? How do people operate business-wise? How do you talk to patients? Is there any differences? How do you approach potential partners or clients? And one of the main differences is that they are very loud, really good at presenting, but specifically they cherish and celebrate their failures, which is something unthinkable of when you think about how we work in Latvia or in Europe. Have you ever seen anyone being proud of on their LinkedIn page that they're a dropout from Oxford, for example? Probably not, or Cambridge, whatever leading European universities. In the US, you see that all the time, and that is a huge thing that we should all embrace also, because your failures are actually what make you smarter. They are the ones that make you more competent, because that means you've been through a really tough situation and you've learned from it. You're not ashamed to say it out loud and be proud of learning from it, and you're not going to get and do the same mistake again. So be more proud about your failures. Be more proud when you're leaving a job. Be more proud when you realize this study program is not for you and you're switching to something else or trying something else differently entirely. Because that is what gets you to the point where you are today. And we are not perfect in any way. The second one is one of my favorites, and it goes, you don't know until you know. But there's an asterisk to this, but you better learn fast. And why this is probably my favorite learning and something that I live by every day, it is because mostly the startup and tech industry is perfect for newbies coming in. So you don't have to you can't even have 20 years of experience in most industries or most technology that we are using, because it just didn't exist 20 years ago. So you can easily come in not knowing much about tech and just figure your way out. But you have to do it fast. That's the only rule that there is when you come into this space. Because everyone comes in here fresh and not knowing things. I remember myself specifically Googling what is VC for the first time 5 years ago, and I had to write a blog post by the end of the week about the VC topic or VCs coming to TechChill, and I had no idea what VCs even is, what VCs are. So as long as you can learn fast and you are excited to do it and your learning curve goes up, you're at the right place, and this is no challenge for you to enter the space. But imagine how big of a learning curve it's been for me, who was this grade A student back in school, and finally I have arrived to a stage where I have to learn something new and admit loudly that I've failed or that I don't know something every week. So that really pushes my limits, and it pushes my comfort zone, and I definitely see personal growth when it comes to these issues that I deal with every day. The third one would be ask for help, not advice. It might be controversial, and it's not like I'm not inviting you to talk to people or just to get someone's point across or get someone's opinion on something, but rather I encourage all of you to twist it always in a way where you get something proactive out of that advice. So for example, so many people that I talk to in the US now, asking them about, so I pitch our product, I pitch Vigo Health, and I ask them, so how do you see us, where do you see us fitting in? Have you seen any competitors doing the same? What do you think would be the best product market fit for our business? They would always give their opinion, but I've realized that once I have 50 calls, for example, I got 40 opinions. So it doesn't really help much. It doesn't give me much more clarity, because everyone comes with their own opinion, because everyone has had their own journey and they based it on the journey. But knowing that there are as many opinions as there are people, it doesn't really help much until I ask them, for example, okay, can you lead me to someone, can you introduce me to someone who can help me test this theory that you have, this advice that you just gave me. If anyone is saying, oh, you should really get into, I don't know, artificial intelligence, because that's a huge space right now. Okay, great. I'm sure you're going to find someone else that says that the space is not that interesting and there's so many people already doing the same, so go into something else. But just test the thesis, or always give a follow-up question or a follow-up sentence after the comment or advice that you get that would help you get evidence. So always try to get a step further from just an advice to actually testing out the advice and seeing if it works in real life. The fourth one is great because it supports Anna's introduction a lot, and it says tech is human. By this, I wanted to say that whatever problem that you or your startup solve, a person should always be at the center of a problem. You should always solve someone's problem. Don't come to a market with a product or a solution that doesn't solve any problem, like a drop shipping service or something. The world doesn't need that. So once you have a specific problem that you solve for a specific person that the problem is known to, you will have much easier way to get a team of people excited to join you because they will find the problem relatable. You will have such an easy time finding investors because you can just explain the thing that you do so much more easy, knowing that there's a person whose problem you're solving. And it goes like that all the way. So as long as your core is at the right place, as long as you have your person whose problem you're solving at the very center of the problem. In our case, it's the stroke survivor. And whenever you make new adjustments, new implementations, or any adjustments to your product, just check in if that stroke survivor is going to get better at the end of the day, if I'm helping the right target audience. As long as you do that, it should be fine. Just always make sure to check in that it's not the money or it's not your personal ambition that is at the very core of why you do what you do, but it's that person whose problem you're solving. And fifth, last but not least, is the power of yesterday, which is the dreamiest of all of the advices I'm going to present to you today. This is what has helped me throughout the most darkest days working in startups and tech. If you know the industry, you know that it's a tremendous effort to motivate yourself every day. It's not all roses and sunshine every day. You deal with stress from investors, from your colleagues. Maybe your hypothesis on product market fit failed greatly. So you're really looking for ways how to motivate yourself, or you're looking for ways how to explain to yourself that you want to make big change, for example. What helps me the most is looking back a year, or a month maybe, or 2 years, or 5 years in my case, which has been this whole presentation in a very therapeutic way for me, to look back and see the journey that you've actually been through, the crazy barriers that you've overcome, the people that have helped you get to where you are today and who might help you in the future. Everything that you've done and achieved and everything that has inspired you, just literally list the things that you've done and people you've met and the achievements that you've been through and that you've been able to reach, because that is going to remind you that you're only at the very beginning of what is in the future for you. So that should always motivate you. Looking in the future is looking back and seeing where you come from and how many great things you've actually done, because that's only a tip of what is there still for you. Hopefully some of this is useful for you, and hopefully I'm going to see most of you at future tech events. Don't get too far, and feel free to reach out to me using my email or LinkedIn in case you would love to have a further chat. 5 seconds, this is amazing. I've never been good with time. Thank you.